My name is Ramon Molina. I am the Executive Director of the UC Innovation Center in Chile, and I have the pleasure of welcoming you all to this event. As we established during yesterday's inauguration, this event is a joint initiative organized by Tsinghua University and the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile, looking to bridge frontier tech developments from China and Chile. The Tsinghua-UC Tech Meetup is the first event of its kind, and we hope that the presentations and technologies that our universities have prepared for you are an important first step in developing a rich conversation between the innovation ecosystem of both countries. This event offers live translation to either Chinese or Spanish. To listen to the speakers in these languages, please select your preferred option in the interpretation button on the lower right-hand side of the Zoom window. Now, before we start today's program, we would like to thank all of the authorities and representatives from the public, private, and academic sector that have kindly joined us today. The Vice President for International Affairs of the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile, Mrs. Lilian Ferrer, and the Vice President of Tsinghua University, Mr. Zeng Rong. Thank you for joining us on this very special occasion. To begin today's schedule, I would like to welcome to the Vice President for International Affairs of the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile, Mrs. Lilian Ferrer. Lilian Ferrer is a UC midwife and a doctor of public health from the University of Illinois at Chicago, an institution where she also earned a Master of Science in Nursing. A tenured professor at the School of Nursing, she has worked for the last 15 years as Director of International Affairs at that school. Her areas of research and development has been mainly in the fields of public health, community science, HIV/AIDS prevention, global health, and social movements. Today, she leads the Universidad Católica Adjunct Office for the Vice President for International Affairs. Welcome, Lilian.
Of the Ambassador Chile.
Okay.
It appears we have a couple of connection problems with Vice President Ferrer. We'll wait for her to reconnect.
Good.
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah,
Right now, yeah.
great.
Thank
so
you.
Good.
Great.
I'm so sorry. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all. First of all, I would like to thank the participation of the Ambassador of the Chinese People's Republic in Chile, Mr. Niu, and Qingbao, the Ambassador for the Republic of Chile in China, Mr. Lee Smith, and the Head of Technical Capabilities at Corfo, Mr. Fernando Hense, at the event yesterday. They are not here with us today, but they have been really important in organizing this event. We also offer our gratitude to the authorities of the University of Tsinghua, the Vice President, Mr. Yang Lin, and the Vice President for Research of Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile, Mr. Pedro Buchon, for this opportunity that joins China and Chile under the umbrella of technological innovation. Likewise, I want to take the opportunity to congratulate Tsinghua University again for their 110th anniversary. For us, this event demonstrates the close collaboration we have with Tsinghua that began with the Faculty of Administration, Finance, and Economics. Since then, we have been expanding to topics in international relations, medicine, architecture, and law, among others. Our Vice Presidency for International Affairs aims to develop our academic networks with the best universities in the world and build bridges with the public and private sectors of our countries to contribute to the solution of real problems in our society. We want to highlight the relationships that we have strengthened during this past year, during which we have managed to continue sustained collaborative work in the virtual environment. For our university, These relationships, and particularly with the University of Tsinghua, are what form the main pillars for the creation of knowledge, research, and culture. Initiatives such as the Tsinghua-UC Tech Meetup frame one of the transcendental objectives of university institutions worldwide to contribute to the development of society. Technology transfer helps us serve a great purpose because solutions to the most challenging social and environmental issues can only emerge through collaborative research between the academy, industry, and government. We are in a highly connected and constantly changing world in which problems and solutions are quickly evolving according to the needs of the society. Within this world, this global world in which we are called to navigate uncertainty, one thing that can rely on is the promise that comes with strengthening innovation initiatives. This is why we enthusiastically invite all our community, especially our academics, researchers, and graduate students to participate. A better world will be a world in which more people can share their vision and actively take part in the construction of knowledge through applied science on a global scale. We hope that this first meetup will be one of many and that we continue to deepen our ties through technology transfer and innovation, given that we can learn a lot from each other. Best wishes for today's meeting, and let's keep our collaboration going. Thank you very much, Roman.
Thank you, Vice President. I would like to now invite the Vice President of Tsinghua University, Mr. Zheng Rong. Professor Zheng's research interests focus on power electronic devices and key equipment of DC grid. He has served as Dean for the Department of Electrical Engineering and Academic Director of the University of Tsinghua. Professor Zheng became Vice President of Tsinghua University in 2021. Welcome, Vice President Zheng. You are mute, I think.
邹校长，您的麦克风还没有开，您解除一下静音。
Oh, sorry. I just now my microphone. Vice President Lilin and ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, good morning and good evening. It's my great pleasure to attend the Tsinghua-UC Tech Meetup, jointly organized by our university and the Pontifical Catholic University of Chile. We discussed China's experience and policy support for tech transfer on yesterday's session, as I know. So for today's meeting, we are going to focus on the Chilean side of the story, how Chile is carrying out tech transfer and its applications. Our two universities have a lot in common. UC Innovation Center is a pioneering institution in Chile and in Latin America. I'm excited to learn that the successful stories on cooperation in vaccine development held by UC and Sinovac will be shared in the following session. Tsinghua has always believed that serving the society is an essential function of universities. And as a part of the supporting system, we established the Office of Technology Transfer in 2014. We have also created a good atmosphere among which researchers could actively participate in technology transfer. And technology transfer, especially international transfer, is a complex issue. I'm very glad that Tsinghua has such an excellent partner, Pontifical Catholic University of Chile, which is located in one of the farthest countries from China. And I'm also pleased that Tsinghua Office of Technology Transfer and the Xin Center can have such a high quality partnership with UC Innovation Center. I believe that our two universities and the guidance of our innovation and technology transfer institutions will be able to jointly identify the most suitable technologies for collaboration, carry out joint researchers, and adapt the excellent innovative technologies provided by our counterparts for each country's application. Both sides will have the opportunity to share their achievements in technological innovation for benefiting our people. And in recent years, Tsinghua has made great strides in STEM research, many of which was witnessed by the entire world. We are proud of these achievements, including breakthroughs in the high-temperature gas reactors, fuel cells, chemical material, and mechanical polishing machine. These results and 500 more have already been deployed in practical application in energy, information, healthcare, new materials, intelligent manufacturing, and recycling. And the dynamic testament to Tsinghua's active service for practical social and economic development. As you know, it's the year of 110th anniversary for our university. We will continue to make efforts in tackling key problems in the fields of basic innovation, critical technologies, and also tech transfer to serve national and social development. In this aspect, Tsinghua will always strive to become more open, integrative, and resilient through partnerships with other universities, and together advance human development and expand the boundaries of knowledges, just as the global university leaders from 2021 stated. Chile is a very good friend of China. In recent years, the trade volume between the two countries has been steadily on the rise, and China has become Chile's largest trading partner. China's investment in Chile is also rising. Our country has already invested in Chile through Chinese companies and banks such as Huawei, Dahua, China Construction Bank, and Bank of China. Now, Tsinghua University and the Pontifical Catholic University of Chile has joined hands to explore the implementation of national technology transfer. I think this is a new chapter in the partnership between our two institutions and our two countries. With such a good foundation, I have confidence in the success of this new journey we started together. So finally, I'm very glad to wish the first technology transfer meetup a total successful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vice President, for these inspiring words. Now, to kick off the program, I would like to give the word to our Center's Corporate Affairs Coordinator, Mr. Manuel Galdames, who will be the moderator for today's event. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramon. So as you well mentioned, yesterday we had the opportunity to look into the University of Tsinghua's extensive tech transfer experience. Now, since today's topic is related to tech adoption opportunities in Chile, our first presenter will offer us an outlook from the private sector regarding challenges and opportunities in tech transfer for innovation. With that said, please note that we will have a brief space reserved for questions and answers after each presentation. So please use the questions and answers button on the lower right-hand side of the Zoom screen in order to send in your questions for today's speakers. Now, without further ado, please welcome the director of the Center for Research and Innovation at one of Chile's most globally recognized companies, Concha y Toro. Mr. Álvaro González, welcome.
Thank you, Manuel. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you perfectly.
Okay, thank you. So, good morning and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be with you today and share our experience in technology transfer from the wine industry and to share with you all the learning about the technology management that we are having in our Center for Research and Innovation. So let me know if you are seeing my screen.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I will share with you a presentation where I will cover a very brief outlook of Viña Concha y Toro, and then I will try to give you our vision about technology transfer. We are doing technology transfer from the results of our own research and development capacities, but also at this center, we are trying to have a complete management of technology transfers from third parties all around the world. So that's the challenge that we are having, because our vision is to be a very open center, trying to collaborate in research and development with the academy here in Chile and in other parts of the world. And of course, in technology transfer, we are trying to take the opportunity to have all the new advancement of science all around the world. So this is you are seeing in the screen a picture of our center, which is located at the south of Chile. So here you can see the main buildings, our laboratory, our experimental cellar, and our extension center. And I will explain you a little bit in deep during my presentation. So a very brief outlook of Viña Concha y Toro, because I think it's important to understand the company and the need to put innovation as a pillar. So we are a leading global company in the wine industry with more than 135 years of history, and we became just a month ago part of the global community of B corporations. Our strategic vision is to be a leading global company centered on the consumer, with focus on development of premium wine brands, as maybe some of these brands are Concha y Toro or Casillero del Diablo. One of our corporate values is innovation. So the center is part of this focus that we, and our international presence is in 130 different countries, but our origins, so we produce grapes and wines in 3 different countries, in Chile, in Argentina, which is and in USA, in California, which is Fetzer wines. Just in April 2021, Viña Concha y Toro was expanding in China. So this is some pictures of the launching of a new distribution subsidiary of Viña Concha y Toro in China. And China also was selected for the global launch of ultra premium wine category, the brand Concha y Toro that you are seeing here in the screen. As I mentioned before, we have a production in Chile in different valleys from north to south, in Argentina, located near to the city of Mendoza. And in California, we have also almost 500 hectares of vineyards in different locations. So the Viña Concha y Toro is a holding, and you have inside this holding different enterprises like Conosur, Concha y Toro, Viña Don Melchor, Trivento in Argentina, Fetzer in California, and Viña Mar. Finally, I want to highlight also that our focus on premium grapes and wines make us the second largest winery in the world in terms of planted vineyards. So we have 12,000 hectares of vineyards. And our key markets, you can see here, China is a very important market, and now maybe it's not the biggest one, but it's increasing very fast during the last years. So let me share with you some messages about our center. So the Center for Research and Innovation of Viña Conchitoro was launched in 2004. And our mission is to promote technology development, applied research, and knowledge transfer in order to make the national wine industry more competitive. So we, as I mentioned before, we are a very open center. We want to collaborate. Our goals are to collaborate with the academy in research, development, and innovation projects that can impact on our business. And also we want to extend our knowledge with the industry. So we have a program of different activities, seminars with producers, grape growers and winemakers in our national wine industry. We have 5 strategic programs that I will go into deep in this during the presentation. And now we are having more than 30 different research and development projects. So we are 26 people, 6 researchers, and also we have a scientific consulting board. So this is just to show you a little bit about the center. This is the experimental winery, where we have the facilities to make all the winemaking process, but in a small scale. This is our chemical and molecular biology lab. So we are here. We have chromatography facilities, spectrometry, and also PCR for making analysis of the different viruses and fungi that are important for our industry. And also we have this extension center, which is the place where we are meeting our audiences. So here you can winery, the molecular biology lab, and the extension center. So we have a first strategic plan, 2016-2020, and we defined a vision to position our center and our company as a global leader in research, development, and innovation through the strengthening of our internal capabilities. So we focus on trying to push a very strong team of people and researchers with a complete portfolio of different projects, but also we focus on trying to build the processes that I will mention in the next slides. I think this, in terms of tech transfer, which is the main topic of this presentation in Chile, is one of the key issues that we have to have in mind. This is our research and development team. So we have a team working in engineering, a team on molecular biology, a team working on very applied viticulture and enology, and finally a person which is leading now all the consumers and product innovation. So this is one of, I want to stop here and try to explain you how we are organized and in our understanding of the tech transfer. This is one of the most important organization innovations, I think. So we have a directive board which is advising the direction of the center, of course. And we have 5 innovation committees, which are led by different researchers of the center, but are composed by different executives of the company that are in charge of the key areas that will innovate with the results of our research and development programs. So, for example, if we are working on aspects in viticulture and doing research and development that will end up with products that can innovate in our vineyards, so the agricultural manager will be involved in this committee, as an example. So I think this close connection that we are having in these committees with all the managements and operational units in the company, is one of the key organizational innovations in our center. And this allowed us to have a strong governance on the different projects to choose which ideas can become real projects and which projects also are ending with value products for the company. So this is, I think, one thing it is important to highlight. Also, we have different valley committees that we call. So these committees are from the north of the country to the south of the country. And this is where the operational units meet together to solve the specific problems that each valley have in Chile. So in the north side of the country, we have a complete different climate than the one that we have, for example, in Maule Valley at the south. So the problems are different. For example, in the north side of the country, we have more problems associated with water scarcity and salinity, for example. And in the south, we have other pathological or phytopathological problems. So in this group in these committees that are valley per valley, we are taking information from the people that are in the vineyards. We can see the real problems that we are having, and also with them we are doing all the transfer of all the products that we are building with our research and development capacities. So they can have industrial pilots trying the new products, the new technologies, and then we can have feedback also from them in order to prioritize or having improvement in our research. And finally, we have some innovation units, technological innovation units, that the focus of these units are to have the technological transfer from third parties. So all the technologies that are in market or some spin-off from universities, for example, that have products that have are mature to go to market. So these opportunities are taken by this unit. These units are led by the managers of different operation units of the company. For example, we have agronomical units and we have a enological unit, which is led by the manager and coordinated by one of our researchers. And the goal is trying to do to have an accelerated way of transfer these technologies, these products, and finally to build strong cases of innovation. Also, with the UC Innovation Center, we launched a case of innovation of Viña Conchitoro and the Center for Research and Innovation. So here you have the link of the document, which is in Spanish. And I want to highlight with you also which are the main conclusions of learning of this case of a study. So first of all, we think that having these capacities to do research and development in our center, so do science-based innovation, give us a higher probability to have a disruptive innovation. So I think this is a very important strategic decision that took the company. In order to really have a disruption, I think to have your own research and development capacities can push your teams to build products and build new technologies that are case by case specific to our reality as a company. So the possibility to disrupt is higher. Also, we think that the advanced human capital in the company is a very important issue. So having people with researchers with PhDs that came from the academy, so they understand also how the academy works, and being in the company also understand how the company works. They are more efficient for make collaboration with the academy. So they can relate with different researchers from the academy in a better way. In terms of our strategy and governance, I showed you before our innovation committees, our technological innovation units. So I think to have a well-defined strategy and governance also is very important in order to push the technology transfer. And I think this is something that most of the companies that do innovation knows. We need to involve all the areas of the company in exploring the new ideas and opportunities. I think you need to involve all the people that are in different productive units inside the operational units inside the company, in order to have the best ideas, and trying to understand also which of these ideas are solved and you have solutions in the market, and which others you will need to solve with your own research and development capacities. And finally, I think if any company in Chile or in other countries need to understand that the academic and public strategic alliances are key, are very important. So we are a group of people, a very small group of researchers, and we cannot solve all the problems that our company have all alone. We need to build strong alliances with different researchers around the world, because also the science is huge, and our researchers are specialists in some specific things, like I mentioned before, engineering, molecular biology. But the opportunities that give us the advancement of the science are huge also, and we need to take this opportunity. Okay, so in this final part of the presentation, I just want to share with you some of the topics that we are developing at the center, and maybe if we have enough time, give you some examples of results and projects that we are running now. So as I mentioned before, we have 5 strategic programs. So you have here these 5 strategic programs, which are consumer and product innovation, smart wine industry, genetic resources and plant health, climate change and wine quality, and finally, sustainability and circularity. So you can see, for example, in the case of a smart wine industry, we are building a vineyard yield forecast system, which is how we, 2 months before the harvest, can predict how many kilograms of grapes we will have in a specific block of vineyards. In the case of genetic resources and plant health, for example, we are building a platform to have a new plant material in order to think about the vineyard of the future. And in the vineyard of the future, the key goal is to have quality plants. So plants that are of a genetical quality, but also are free from viruses and fungi that can impact on the productivity and quality of the grapes. In the case of climate change and wine quality, one of our key projects is estimation of vineyard water demand. So with different micro-meteorological technologies like surface renewal or eddy covariance, we are estimating with less error the amount of water that we are losing from our vineyards and advising different vineyards around the country and in Argentina, so the amounts of water that they need to put in the vineyard. So it's we are estimating in these 2 last years of industrial pilot with this new technology, we are having less water for irrigation in the vineyards, and this is between 20 and 30%. So it's a huge impact for us. And in terms of sustainability and circularity, we are working in composting. So how can we take the opportunity of the residues that we have in our cellars and compost them to build better soils? So the regeneration of the soil is one of the key topics today for agriculture, and of course for viticulture, it's very important. We have very compacted soils that cannot have accumulation of water inside, and also the biodiversity of the soils, it's one of the problems. So this is one of the projects that we have here, focused on composting, but also we are building other projects trying to make soils with more, we call healthy soils, okay? So here you have, for example, in the case of our vineyard yield forecasting project, the key human resources that we have in the team is the data scientist that you can see here, which is and with our data scientists and our IT developer, we build a platform to put all the artificial intelligence models in a platform that can use the grape grower in the vineyard. And also as an equipment, we have a high performance computation capabilities and a bioprocess laboratory with a small fermenter in order to reproduce the fermentation of the wine, but in a small scale, and taking a lot of data to build the models. So which are the main products? We have an accurate machine learning model based on different algorithms and with application on Cabernet Sauvignon. And we are trying to now push these models to work with other cultivars that we have in Viña Consuelo, of course, Chardonnay, Merlot, Carmener, Sauvignon Blanc, and etc. So also we have a new vineyard operation protocol for a cost-efficient grape sampling and counting. And the next step, of course, will be to trying to build a new system with computer vision in order to take the data from the vineyard. I will go fast on this. So in the circularity and sustainability, as I mentioned before, that we are working on composting. So we are moving to a new system of static aerated piles. So we push the oxygen inside the pile in order to have a shorter process, fast conversion of the product into compost. And also we build a new experimental vineyard that are you seeing here in the slide, where we are doing different additions of composting and compost in the soil and trying to assess the impact on the productivity of the vineyard. So here is the way we are working with this technology of aerated static piles. And we also want to determine the impact of the compost soil. So we have 3 different experiments in the field, and these 3 different experiments are in collaboration between Emiliana Vineyards, Emiliana, Viña Cono Sur, and Concha y Toro. So as I mentioned before, also we are working on integrated irrigation management and trying to give more information to the grape growers about the amount of water that they need to put in the soil. And we have a huge experiment in Maule Valley in the south of Chile, where we are also working with stressing a little bit the plants with less amount of water, which is in the case of grape growing for winemaking, is a normal tool that we use to concentrate the polyphenols and other quality molecules that we have in the grapes in order to have better quality wines. And also to use less water to be more efficient in the use. In the case of the new plant material for the vineyard of the future, we build these capacities in our laboratory to do qPCR for the analysis of 13 different viruses and find trunk disease fungi. And also we are working in the reinforced clean plants with using mycorrhiza and trichoderma, which are microorganisms that are beneficial for the plants, in order to have vineyards that can live with high productions for more than 30 years. That's the goal. And we launched last year our germoplasm bank, where we are putting all the clean material that we are selecting from all our vineyards. And also these are the analytical methodologies that we have in our laboratory working now, assessing different viruses, different fungi, bacteria, and other beneficial microorganisms as I. Also, we have some molecular biology tools to assess the varieties, to identify the plant material that we have in. And finally, just to show you that also not only the center is focused on transfer, which is the main goal, to have innovation and to have the competitiveness of the company, but also we have publications in journals, and we have a participation in different congress and seminars around the world in the. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'll be happy.
Thank you, Alvaro, for sharing Conchitoro's model for R&D and innovation. So as we mentioned prior to the presentation, we have a brief moment for questions and answers. Remember that if you want to send your question for Alvaro or our other presenters, please use the questions and answers button on the lower right side of the Zoom screen. Now, Fernanda asks, how would you suggest motivating Chilean companies to invest in R&D and innovation?
So it's not that easy. I think the main decisions in Viña Conchitoro was taken by the board of directors of Conchitoro, which have they have this vision and the real commitment to build innovation in Viña Conchitoro. So I think you in the wine industry you have to take the examples that you have in the wine industry and the impact of research innovation that you can see in other companies. So the examples are not too much, but you can see as Viña Conchitoro in Chile, one company in California, and maybe one company in Spain, in Portugal, and France that are taking these kind of decisions to invest in these resources and capabilities. And I think you can see the impact. You can if you see the impact of the new products, but not only the new products, the process innovations that they are building are making a difference in these companies in order to build competitiveness in the world wine industry.
Absolutely. So Jiang Yi asks us also, in regards to the research projects that you conduct with university partners, how do you handle the intellectual property?
So it's case by case. In each case, we have to first sign an agreement with the university, and we specify in these agreements on the beginning of any project how we want to manage the intellectual property and industrial property of the project. That depends on also the funding of the projects and also the involvement of different researchers from the university and the researchers of our company in the activities of the project.
Great. So we have only just a brief moment now for a final question, since we want to keep everything in time for the program. Li Jiao Li asks us, what kind of water treatment technology are you most concerned about?
Trying to avoid to have salinity. So how can we decrease the levels of salinity in some specific valleys in the north side of the country? Even in Maipo Valley near Santiago in Chile, salinity is increasing as a problem. So that's one of the key goals. But also we are working with some magnetic treatments of the water in order to, for example, trying to have more lixiviation in the soil in order to watch the salts that accumulate in the soil of the vineyard.
Thank you, Alvaro. A final question from Andres Ibanez. He's asking us, in your experience, what are the major blocks or roadblocks, rather, when trying to implement a project like this one in Concheitoro and in Chile?
So main blocks, I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question, but
the challenges that you face when implementing innovation project.
Okay. So if I think on challenges, I think the human capital, it's the intellectual capital is one of the key things. It's the most important thing. And we launched the center in 2014, but the building of the different teams of our center, it took 2 to 3 years. And also we are not in Santiago, we are near the city of Talca, which is 250 kilometers in the south. So the challenge to have the right people and convince them to move to the south of the country, I think was a huge challenge. But I think it's one of the that you have to invest the most of your resources.
Great. Now we're obviously now looking towards the next presentation, but one final question asked by Diego Vasquez. What is the main challenge that we're facing in terms of the drought, the lack of rainwater, and that is currently faced by Chile?
So I think there is the efficiency in irrigation. We need to be more efficient in the way we irrigate our soils. We cannot lose water. We cannot over irrigate. So it's not that easy. If you go to see in general in Chile and in other countries how the irrigation is managed, the people used to see the soil, see the roots, but we have a lack of technology in order to have sensors in the soil, sensors in the plant that can give you objective information to take the decision to how much irrigate and when irrigate. So if you build that, I think in every orchard or vineyard, you will be more efficient in the use of water, and we can have a huge impact in the use of water in all the main agricultural valleys in Chile.
Absolutely, and this is a challenge that is very, very important to not only the viticulture industry, but also many other industries. With that final question, I would like to thank Alvaro again for his time, for his presentation, for the answers that he's just given us, and we would like to move on to our next presenter. Thank you, Alvaro. Our next presenter has been directly involved in one of the more dynamic transfer experiences in recent history, the COVID-19 vaccination efforts. To guide us through this collaborative tech transfer case study on the Sinovac vaccine in Chile, I'd like to invite Dr. Alexis Galergis, biochemist, UC full professor, and director of the Millennium Institute on Immunology and Immunotherapy. Dr. Galergis, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Manuel. Thank you for the invitation to this very important meeting. Congratulations to Tsinghua University and Catholic University for doing something that is very important. It's just to bring together two cultural worlds that have so much in common and also have so many common interests as I expect to transfer on my presentation. So I will share my my slides. Please let me know if you see them, because sometimes I get stuck.
We see it.
So if for whatever reason, Manuel, I just keep talking and you keep seeing the same slide, let me know, because sometimes Zoom does that. So you
Yes,
keep
we'll
on
let you
talking and then you're stuck on the same slide. All right, so we're confronting probably the biggest, the largest health burden in the history of the world. And of course, this is not the first pandemic, but this time I think probably for the first time in the history of the human being, the science was, I think, well prepared. Although it's so sad there have been so many fatalities and so many problems. It's been really bad. But despite of that, we will see that science has been there, not only on vaccines, which I will talk about today, but also in other areas. And the preparation, besides having the technology and the knowledge, I think the preparation has a lot to do with connections and collaborations and being able to work as teams. So in terms of drugs against COVID-19, they had only modest effects, and it's been a very strong effort on developing drugs for against the virus. But clearly, vaccines that started their development really early during the pandemic, they led to several different types, and as I will describe. But we know that we need to vaccinate the entire population. That's really a large amount of people. So there will be still there is a very large demand of vaccines for protecting the humanity, because the reason for the virus to spread so quickly has to do with the lack of immunity against the virus. And of course, we truly believe in the collaborations in science. Science is all about collaborations, and I think that not only makes better science, but also quicker. We can get better results in shorter times. So about just quick mention about the virus. It's a respiratory virus. It's pretty amazing. It's only 14 open reading frames. We humans have like 25,000. So it's really amazing how this small microbe can be so destructive, so negative for our health and our regular life. And this virus leads to several symptoms, not only in the airways and the lungs, but also they have an effect on the brains and the GI and skin and other tissues. And we had already published a few years ago a paper, and also last year, 2020, we published 2 papers showing that another virus, the syncytial respiratory virus, RSV, has also effects on the CNS. We were the first one in communicating that result, and this has been also observed for SARS-CoV-2, for the coronavirus. So apparently these viruses, besides affecting the airways, they are able to affect the central nervous system. So why do we get sick because of this virus? Basically, the infection leads to colonization of the virus of the lungs, and that leads to an immune response that can be excessive. And that excessive immune response leads to some of the symptoms that can be severe for the person. If we want to protect against the virus, we need to clear the virus without massive inflammation. And that's what vaccines do. They train your immune system so they're able to control the infection. So pretty much every different type of vaccine approach has been used for SARS-CoV-2. We in the university are working on 4 different types with the support of the Foundation COPECUC. And of course, I will tell you today about the collaboration with Chinese collaborators, Sinovac, on an inactivated virus vaccine. And if you want to tackle this virus, I think it would be important to approach this with a vaccine that has all the components of the virus, that because we at the university are working on vaccines that have all the antigens. So the main antigens of the virus are these four, which is the spike protein, the envelope protein, membrane protein, and the nucleocapsid. And that's the composition that the inactivated virus vaccine that was produced by Sinovac also has all the components from the virus. We think that an immune response against a vaccine with all the antigens will be more integral, more comprehensive, and lead to better immunity. One of the first observations we made and we published really early during the pandemic was that countries that use BCG, which is the vaccine for tuberculosis, during the first weeks of the outbreak of SARS-CoV-2 in the countries, in green are the countries that use BCG. They have reduced numbers as compared to countries that do not use BCG. We published this in April, May 2020, and several other papers came after this one, and that led us to the notion that we could use BCG as a way of vaccinate against the virus. So we made a vaccine based on BCG, which I will explain in a few minutes. And the way this vaccine works is by inducing something that is known as trained immunity. Trained immunity leads immune cells, render them in a prepared manner to respond to other pathogens, for example, respiratory virus, such as coronavirus. So we are working on this vaccine. We think that this hyper-inflammatory response that is triggered after the infection could be prevented by the use of this recombinant vaccine that we are currently working on at the university. So I just wanted to tell you that several young investigators from our laboratory have been working all through the pandemic, and they've been able already to generate this vaccine that is moving into clinical trials. And this is important because that, of course, we've been doing this for about 20 years, but this, set us in the network of different centers in different countries working on vaccines. And these two, I think, very, very, major articles, one in Nature and in the New York Times, they highlight the work that we are doing in Chile. And that's important because that allowed us for several years, way before the pandemic, to establish collaboration with colleagues in different countries. And we initiated, as I will explain, during 2019, a collaboration with China. But also it's very important to get organized locally, to have domestic collaborations is also important. So in order to confront the pandemic, we, as a university, led a consortium of 11 universities that work together in different clinical trials. So we truly believe in scientific diplomacy. I think it's very important to just build in collaborations with other countries. And I think science is able to open borders and to just allow an easy interaction between countries, because we scientists have in general so many things in common and questions that we would like to answer together. So in 2019, there was a big meeting in Beijing, the 17th International Congress of Immunology. We were invited to that meeting to present our work on vaccines. And of course, with the help of the Chilean embassy in Beijing, we met different collaborators at universities and companies. And one of them was Sinovac. We had the chance to present our work and of course learn about their technologies. This was a time before the pandemic. So at this time we were talking about our respiratory vaccine, the respiratory syncytial virus vaccine. And the plan was to carry on a collaboration on that. And we still are planning to do that. But then the pandemic came, and we have to move all our efforts into COVID-19. And Sinovac is a company that is well known, and they have been working on vaccine many years. They have produced vaccines against other pandemic viruses, for example, influenza. We knew them in Chile before. They have registered other vaccines, for example, hepatitis and influenza, through our regulatory agency. And they, of course, use a technology that they knew well, and they've been working with it for several years, consisting on an inactivated virus vaccine. And we think that's really good approach, because that technology is known for about 60 years. So it's a lot of safety on that approach. And of course, they quickly published their vaccine in a very good journal in Science, explaining the way the vaccine is produced, and of course the first preclinical studies that move into clinical studies, phase 1 and phase 2, 2 different studies, one in adults and a second one in elderly, and they published these studies in clinicaltrial.gov, which is a very prestigious site that is supervised by the US NIH, and that's a way to communicate the execution of a clinical trial. So that was the adult, and this is the elderly clinical trial. And after finishing up the interim analysis of both studies, they published 2 papers that are really important. One, both of them in Lancet. This is a major journal, major international journal that describes the safety and the immunogenicity for the vaccine in these 2 different age population, adults between 18 and 59 and elderly over 60 years old. And in parallel, we were working on this agreement for a collaboration on vaccines, specifically COVID-19 vaccines. This is a reciprocal collaboration. We were just basically continuing what we were doing before the pandemic, but of course we focused on coronavirus. That was the urgency. And as well as we visited China in 2019, our colleagues from Sinovac visited Chile in October, when we were already ready to initiate our clinical study together. So in order to have the study put together in Chile, we have to, of course, comply with all the regulation, the ethical committee, the regulatory agency, that is the Institute of Public Health. And that took place at the end of September 2020. So 2 different clinical trials were approved at the same time. And that allowed us to register the trial in clinicaltrials.gov, which is, again, is a very important way to be transparent in terms of the way the clinical trial is being conducted. And the trial involves several sites in different places in Santiago, the main city in Chile, but also in a city about an hour ago, an hour away by car. So it's not only in the main capital, but also in a region outside of the capital. And the data, I'll show you just 2 slides with data. We already have an article submitted. The data showed safety of the vaccine, the Chilean population, and in terms of immunogenicity, we were able to see that the vaccine was able to induce antibodies after the second dose, 2 weeks after the second dose of the vaccine. So this work in this study led us to, of course, communicate these results that we made public by an article in April this year. But before that, we were all the time communicating the progress that we were making to the, of course, to Sinovac, but also to the Chilean government, so they could add up our results to the other clinical trials that were in progress in Brazil and Turkey and Indonesia. So the main conclusions of the trials was that the vaccine was well tolerated with very low local or general reactogenicity. We had not severe adverse effects. We did see antibodies in most of the vaccinees, most of the people vaccinated 2 weeks after the second dose, and that the antibodies are able to neutralize the virus. That's also a very important result. We also measuring T cells is a different component of the immune response, not only focusing on antibodies. That's people. I mean, most people talk about antibodies all the time, but antibodies are only a fraction of the immune response, and it's important also to determine T cells. And just thinking on the collaboration, this data that we made public on this preprint in April, these data were the first data that derived from non-Chinese science. So that strengthened and provides additional support to the vaccine, because this was an independently conducted study leading to data suggesting that the vaccine was appropriate for human use. And of course, that allowed us to strengthen our collaborations with our colleagues in China, but in addition, allowed us to build up our capacities in Chile, is to put together teams that will allow us to do new studies and better research in the area of vaccines. And in fact, as I will discuss and mention at the end, now we're planning to go into the pediatric population because there is a significant lack of vaccines for children. And this was not done alone. Of course, the study was in collaboration with Sinovac, and that was coordinating 4 different trials. In addition to the Chilean trial, there was a trial in Brazil, in Turkey, and Indonesia. And this international collaboration between China and Chile, in addition to the science and the data that just is coming out of the study, allowed us, as I will explain, to just to provide a sufficient supply of vaccines in order to initiate a mass vaccination process in the country. And we at the university, and we see vaccines as public goods. They are very important for human health. There are several examples of how vaccines have reduced or even eradicated diseases. So from the university, our approach is totally non-profit, just focus on the science and the benefit for the human health. Okay, so in parallel to the work that we were doing with Sinovac about the science and studying the vaccine, the Chilean regulatory agency did an inspection on site of Sinovac. That was very important. It's the only vaccine that was inspected with a visit to the plant. And the Chilean regulatory agency, they just made a very, very good report indicating that Sinovac was just doing all the vaccine manufacturing according to the international regulations, and that led to the approval of the vaccine for emergency use late in January 2021. A few months after we started our study. And that approval activated a component of the agreement that we have made with Sinovac. In addition to the science, we had agreed that if the vaccine was approved for human use, Sinovac was, they had to provide a number of doses through the government. So from the university, we transferred that right to the Chilean government, specifically to the Ministry of Health. So the Ministry of Health directly with Sinovac was able to secure a large amount of vaccines that allowed the initiation of a massive campaign of vaccination in the country. And that led Chile to be one of the countries that have been vaccinating most efficiently. And already by the end of March, some very encouraging observations in terms of effectiveness of the vaccine were beginning to be seen, specifically in elderly people that received the vaccine earlier. And what we found in the controlled clinical trial was started to be reproduced by scientists in different universities just by following the vaccination campaign that was being implemented in the country. So this is a result from scientists at another university in Chile, just by following up people that were vaccinated through the Ministry of Health vaccination campaign, and he was showing the same seroconversion rate, so antibody rate that we were observing in the clinical trial. The Ministry of Health makes these reports frequently, and we start seeing a reduction of the cases of need of hospitalization for the people that have received the vaccines first. And again, same kind of graphs were made, and the number of cases were beginning to get controlled. This was before the low temperatures in Chile started. And not only in Chile that was the case, the same kind of results were obtained in Brazil, for example. This is a place at the north of São Paulo, in a state called Ceará. The blue line are healthcare workers that got the vaccine earlier, and they have a very minor second wave of infection as compared to the general population that have not been vaccinated yet. So this is a sign that the vaccine is working also in Brazil. This is data from the Ministry of Health, the first effectiveness study, and showing how the vaccine was reducing the number of symptomatic cases, hospitalizations, ICU requirement, and also death. And these were numbers that were obtained by the Ministry of Health in terms of the effectiveness of the vaccine after a complete round of vaccination was achieved for each person. These are numbers that are very encouraging in terms of preventing cases, hospitalization, ICU, and death. And so in addition to Brazil and Chile, the Ministry of Health from Uruguay, in that country, the Sinovac vaccine is also being used. They have released already 2 different reports of effectiveness showing very, very encouraging results with effectiveness for the vaccine over 90% to prevent hospitalization and death. So the main conclusions are that the Sinovac vaccine is safe and immunogenic. We established together with Sinovac that 2 doses are required, and 2 weeks after the second dose are needed to reach significant neutralizing antibodies. And the most important thing is that the safety, immunogenicity, and efficacy of the vaccine that was observed as part of the controlled scientific clinical trials are predict well the performance of the vaccine in the general population in terms of safety, immunogenicity, and effectiveness. There are several questions that need to be answered, and we are working again in collaboration with our Chinese collaborators in terms of the lasting of immunity, whether additional boost of the vaccines will be needed. The question is whether the vaccine immunity the immunity induced by the vaccine would be able to neutralize the current and future coronavirus variants. And of course, a very, very important question that we are about to approach, again, in collaboration with Sinovac, is the safety, immunogenicity, and efficacy of the vaccine in the pediatric population. They already have a major clinical trial in progress, and that has already led to very good data in terms of safety and immunogenicity of the vaccine in children. And being part of the collaboration, of course, allowed us to know and to analyze that data. And we are about to start a clinical trial, a phase 3 scientific clinical trial here in Chile. And just to end, just a few just reflections for you to consider. First is just the expectations that we all have about vaccines. It's good to have expectations, but we have to be realistic in terms of how long it takes for a vaccine to control a disease. So this is data from Chile in the about measles. It's another virus, and in the 60s, as you see in this slide, when the vaccine was introduced, the first thing you see is a reduction in the severe cases and the death. But the circulation of the virus and the number of cases, they stay up there for a while. There was an outbreak of measles in the late 80s, early 90s. And again, with the vaccination, the first thing that goes down is the number of death, while the cases remain up for a couple of years. So we need to be patient with the vaccine. The immunity takes time. And this data comes from a book from Jorge Jimenez. He's a former Minister of Health in Chile. So what I just showed you, and we're very content. We're very, I would say, happy of the work that we've been able to put together with our Chinese collaborators. But this is possible thanks to basic research, clinical research, the help from the public and private sector, and of course the collaboration with international partners and the involvement of the citizens. That's very important. We need to, of course, be very communicative all the time in order to have the citizens of each country engage on what we are doing as scientists, and in that, along that line is I like to just drive your attention to this editorial from Nature, saying that vaccine confidence needs radical transparency from scientists, and we have been working along those lines, communicating every success, every achievement, but also communicating the difficulties and failures, because science is a very dynamic process. So what I show you was done between, again, a collaborative work inside the university with Katia Barca, Susan Bueno, Pablo Gonzalez, and Jose Vicente Gonzalez, all of them professors from different universities at the different schools at the university, and many young scientists, physicians, nurses have been involved in this study that involves altogether about 200 people. So thank you very much again for the invitation, and I'll be happy to take any questions or hear any comments.
Thank you very much, Dr. Callegis, for this very comprehensive look into one of the more pressing tech transfer case studies we've had in recent years. As you mentioned, we'd like to take a brief moment for questions and answers, and you touched upon this with the future work that is now laid out for your teams. But Andres Ibanez asks, what will this collaboration mean for the future relationship with China and Sinovac? Are there any new collaborative projects in the future that maybe are not COVID related?
Yeah, good. Thank you for the question. We met before the pandemic. So we were already planning a collaboration on vaccines. And that was postponed due to the pandemic. And we, of course, had to turn pretty much all our capacities, abilities, skills into the pandemic collaboration. So as soon as this gets controlled, we plan to go back into our original plan, which was to collaborate in the common development of other vaccines. We were planning to collaborate on respiratory viruses vaccines, and that's going back probably as soon as the pandemic is controlled, then we are also planning to move into that area.
Great. Cecilia Urquieta also asks something that I'm sure a lot of people, especially in the media, are asking right now. Are you testing the effectiveness of the Sinovac vaccine against COVID variants, especially the more recent Delta variant, which appears to be more aggressive and contagious?
Thank you for the question. Yes, that's a very important point. It's really amazing because the virus is pretty efficient at coming out with these variants. But just for you to know, I mean, to test whether the immunity, the antibodies or T cells are produced by the vaccine, to test that for a variant, that takes a lot of work. First, you need to get the components that are associated with the variant, not the virus, but the proteins. So we have done that with most of the variants, and now this new variant, the Delta, we already have the components in our laboratory, and we plan to do the assays in the next coming weeks. So most likely early July, mid-July, we will have data to answer the question as to whether the antibodies raised by the vaccine are able to neutralize the Delta variant.
Excellent. Final question here from Paola, which is looking more into the vaccine production ecosystem here nationally. She would like to ask which vaccines are currently being produced in Chile in addition to the one that you're mentioned. Is there other cases? Or are there other cases rather?
Well, there are no vaccines produced in Chile whatsoever. That's one of the main, we'll say, deficiencies we have. So there are vaccines that were approved based on clinical trials done elsewhere and in Chile. So there are so far 5 different vaccines that were approved, and out of those 5, I think 4 have been used. And that's another big challenge that we're trying to approach together. Again, as a consortium of universities, from Catholic University, with the University of Antofagasta, with the University of Chile, and the Universidad Austral, which is a university in the south of the country, in order to regain the capacity of producing vaccines in Chile. And of course, one of the alternatives that we are evaluating is to do so in collaboration with Sinovac. Chile was a producer of vaccine up to the late 90s, and that stopped. And now we depend entirely from the international production of vaccine. And that, of course, is not a great situation when you are confronting a pandemic. So that's one of the challenges that we as a university are working. Always our position and our view comes from the science, from the collaboration, the generation of new knowledge, and the transfer of that knowledge into technologies. We have no commercial involvement whatsoever, but of course, having the capacities built here will allow to transfer the knowledge that we generate in our university and other universities in the country into actual products and technologies that could be used for different infectious diseases such as COVID-19.
One final question. You obviously mentioned the importance of transparency in case of trust, and obviously the trust fit is perhaps one of the more relevant aspects for successful technology transfer. What do you attribute to the trust that maybe private sector partners could have in this process? You mentioned the synergy in this collaboration. What role did private sector partners play in this trust fit?
I think first, when you build a product on reproducible scientific data, as we will listen now to two of our success cases from the university, when you have strong scientific data that allow you to build a product that will provide a lot of trust to the company and the private sector, because when you have a strong foundation on data, scientific data, that leads to a technology, then that technology is strong and not only strong at its current form, but also could be improved based on building upon that strong foundation of data that you have. So for the private sector, the commercial investments, investing in technology that has truly a real foundation on scientific reproducible data would make a better product and eventually a better business. A business that has a chance to be improved by making modifications on that technology. When the scientific data is solid and clear, then you can always make it better by doing a fine-tuning over that product. So you can, as a result of, and there are many examples of technologies that derive from science, that's hardcore good science that have become a very good case of a very good business cases.
Definitely. Thank you again, Dr. Gallegis, for this very comprehensive presentation.
Thank you so much, and congratulations for the meeting.
So now, in the interest of time, we would like to move on to today's final presenters with our health tech showcase. The following solutions are tech transfer cases from the Universidad Católica and offer an intimate perspective into the development and challenges of health tech solutions. In this showcase, we will have two presenters, so please make sure to send your questions again through the questions and answers function in Zoom, and please mentioning who the question is directed to, and we will relay them to the speakers afterwards. So to start this tech showcase, I would like to welcome our first presenter, Dr. Hernan Gonzalez, who will share with us more about thyroid print. Welcome, Hernan. Hernan, I think you are muted. Hernan, it appears we can't hear you at this moment. So as we solve this problem, we will start with the other presenter first, and then we will come back to you. Okay. So excuse our audience for this problem. We will start with our other presenter first before moving on to Hernan's solution. So our first presenter then will be Dr. Julian Varas, who will give us an outlook into health tech development with his solution training competence. Julian, please take it away.
Sure, thank you. Can you listen to me well?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so first of all, thank you for this great opportunity to share our experience with you guys. And I'm gonna talk about training competence and the project called See One, Do One. We know that in order to learn things, we first need to pass through different stages of learning. And the first stages usually are associated with know and know-how. But if we want to practice things, let's imagine you are a surgeon, such as me, and you want to learn how to perform a surgery, a practical skill, a psychomotor skill. Well, then you need to pass through a show how and to demonstrate how skills are actually performed in a protected environment, such as a simulation training center. And finally, you need to know how to do things in the actual real scenario. So this would be like operating a real patient. What do we need in order to learn practical skills? We have a small framework for you to easily understand, and it is based on 3 pillars. The first pillar is the space and infrastructure. And this means, let's say you want to learn guitar lessons. This would mean that the first pillar involves the guitar. You need to have a guitar in order to play guitar. You would also need, for example, an acoustic room, or for example, a recording system if you want to share what you learned, and sometimes internet if you want to share this abroad. The second pillar means training, the training program itself. Are you going to learn basic guitar, advanced guitar? If it's a surgical program, would it be a basic surgical program? And which will be the outcome? Is after that training program, will you perform basic skills on a patient, or will you do advanced skills? So it is very important to validate training programs. The third pillar means how to teach. We are considering the network of teachers who will be doing the feedback. So if a trainee commits a mistake or an error, who is going to give you a feedback on how to improve that mistake and pass to the next level? This is one of the key ingredients of a simulation training center and program, and usually it is very scarce. This is an example of the first pillar, and at Training Competence, we have developed some of the simulators so that you can now start emulating or simulating this type of procedures, such as liver surgery, such as very difficult technical key portions of any kind of surgery. And as you can see, this is only a first pillar. This doesn't mean you have a complete training system. I'm going to show you a training program that we've validated in the last 11 years at the Simulation Training Center. And as you can see, we want to teach trainees, and these trainees are surgeons, information, and how to perform a very complex procedure such as the union of 2 bowels. And the development of a gymnasium to train this type of skills was a very key ingredient. As you can see, many trainees go at their own pace in an asynchronous fashion, receiving in-person feedback. In order to validate this, we learned that you needed to have a learning curve. And not only that, that learning curve was achieved in 16 sessions. As you can see, prior training, there is a very heterogeneous group of trainees. But after training, the group is very homogeneous. And from a technical point of view, in performance, the worst scores are much better than the best scores at the beginning of the training program. Actually, they can be compared to experts at the simulation lab. But this doesn't mean that they perform well on patients. So we need to demonstrate that this program actually transferred the skills to the real scenario. And that is exactly what we did. So first, we compared junior trainees with experts. And these junior trainees had the training system I just showed you, but the surgeons were not trained with simulation, and they had almost between 3 to 5 years of formation. So as you can see with the system, junior trainees perform much better compared to general surgeons graduated from traditional programs of 5 years, but without simulation training. And this is amazing because it's only a month training program to complement any general surgery residency. The third pillar is very important, and usually what we do in areas such as the healthcare area is that we call the most expert available to teach us the psychomotor skill which we want to learn. And just to give an example, this would be something like if we want to teach soccer to this kid, we need to call Lionel Messi to tell how to improve things. And we know that this is not feasible. First of all, Lionel Messi needs to be playing all the time and constantly training himself so that he can win a lot of cups and for us to enjoy. So in soccer, what have they done? They have trained trainers, and these trainers, usually what they do is they know exactly when this kid knows is committing a mistake, and these trainers know how to improve that mistake so that they can receive this feedback and then pass to the next level. So we have dedicated trainers in soccer, but in the healthcare area, usually we don't. We usually call the best surgeon to teach surgery, and we should start developing professional networks of teachers. Without them, you don't need them to be as a very professional surgeon. What you need is someone that knows the training program and how to give and deliver the best feedback. So with these three pillars in mind, what we've developed is see one, do one. From the phrase of William Halstead, who developed the residencies at Johns Hopkins, see one, do one, then teach one. We loved Star Wars, so the name is now see one, do one. And I'm going to show you an example, the course lab, that is the one we validated and that I just showed in the traditional way. So now a trainee can download the app, can watch this video of how things should be done, and then the trainee goes to a training lab or at his home, and he can train and record himself. Then this video gets uploaded to the C1 Do One Lab cloud, and once it's in the cloud, a teacher network of instructors will receive this video in an asynchronous fashion. This is not a live evaluation. And these trainers can now put pause anywhere they want on the video, put fast forward, attach video capsules from a video library, can draw in the screen. They can add audio feedbacks and comments so that many inputs now are attached to the same video of the trainee who will then, this trainee will receive the video back with all these inputs and watch over and over again his performance. But not only that, with many tips and tricks on how to improve this performance for the next training session, so that then the trainee will complete a learning curve. While this is happening, we know that, for example, the trainee will. I'm sorry, I'm going to plug the computer. Just a small problem. 1 second. Sorry, again, there I go. So while the trainee receives this feedback, he will be able to repeat this over and over again until he records himself, and then the learning curve is achieved. We demonstrate that this training system is actually achieving the same scores as the traditional feedback that had with in-person feedback. For example, if you receive the in-person feedback at the simulation lab itself. So we have demonstrated that, for example, with in-person feedback, you will improve over 20 points of score. That is on a world-class level as an expert. And with the lab system, with the C1 Do One lab system, you can achieve the same scores, but now remotely and asynchronously. So we can now expand the training programs everywhere. With training competence, we have now expanded this to Peru, Ecuador, El Salvador. We are now about to open a training center at Sao Paulo, Brazil, at UCSF in California. And if this works for surgical skills acquisition, what about other medical areas? And what about other healthcare related areas? Is it possible to train any kind of psychomotor skill? So as you can see, we have done many other experimentations. And one of them that was key ingredient at the pandemics was, for example, we had to train personnel that is related to healthcare areas in different regions of Chile, because they needed to have this acute way to learn how to confront, for example, skills that are necessary for confronting the pandemics, the coronavirus, such as initial management strategy of acute respiratory failures, how to manage an airway, how to use prone positioning, for example. In this kind of training, we now learned that we could not only train a couple of trainees, but over 1,200 trainees distributed in all Chile. And this was very necessary because these trainees couldn't travel to Santiago, where our training center is, because of, for example, the lockdowns that were an obligation for everyone in Chile to attend. So is it possible to train massively, for example, an undergraduate? And institutions now with the C1-Do1 methodology and platform can now apply this. For example, in the undergraduate, you can leave a special room for trainees to go and train. And you can see here how a trainee is performing a specific exercise, while the teacher can now put pause anywhere in the video, add comments, add videos, add audio text and audio feedback, so that then this trainee will receive the feedback on his cell phone or her cell phone. And in this case, she can watch it over and over again until, again, they can achieve a learning curve. We have demonstrated that 2 asynchronous sessions of 1 hour achieves much better passing scores to achieve a competency level, desired competency level, compared to, for example, only an intensive course of 6 hours. That is the traditional intensive course that everyone does if you have over 120 students in the undergraduate, for example. And we have now expanded this skills to most of our faculty of medicine and their physical therapy, nursing school, the audiology, between others. Of course, with this methodology, more possibilities can be achieved, such as training at home. And the good thing about this is that the experience of learning is now being digitalized, so we can understand what is a good teacher, what is a good feedback, and how this feedback impacts on the trainees and how they can improve in their learning curve. So we can start developing algorithms for artificial intelligence, where we can now complement a teacher on how to do the assessments, how to give the feedback. And in a close future, why not to have automated courses where you can automatically have the best feedback for any type of trainee. So the future is very bright, and we are developing systems for not only trainees, but also the trainers, and the third pillar to expand everywhere, and how to escalate trainers and to form these trainers and this network of teachers easily, remotely, and using our platform. So thank you again for your attention. I'm sorry I had the power cord disconnected. It was a problem, but I'm sure it doesn't affect the presentation. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Julian, and please excuse the problem that we had to switch up the order because of a minor technical issue that we had. But I would now like to welcome back Dr. Hernan Gonzalez. He will share us a bit more about thyroid print. So welcome, Hernan.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Great. So, well, first of all, congratulations for all the presentations that have been very, very high level and excellent work. So I'm just going to start with a very brief story. This is a true story. Benjamin is a 12-year-old child who was referred to me due to a thyroid nodule. And he was sent to have a fine needle aspiration or a biopsy of this nodule to understand the nature of this lump in his neck. And ultimately the result that was read was that the nodule was indeterminate, which basically means that the pathologist isn't able to provide a final diagnosis and leaves the physician and the patient with uncertainty. So this patient was referred to three different surgeons, and all surgeons recommended to remove the thyroid nodule. And to do this for a 12-year-old kid is a high impact on his quality of life in the future. So basically, this is an important question that we've been living for a long time. And the question is, what do we do with these cases? Because in the normal pathway, a thyroid nodule undergoes final aspiration and biopsy to understand if it's benign or malignant, but 20% of these cases are reported as indeterminate. And the problem is that they only have 25% risk of being cancer, and that leaves us with the question, what do we do? Should we treat them and operate them anyway, or should we do a new biopsy? So there's a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of these patients ultimately are recommended diagnostic surgery in order to determine the final diagnosis, which means that about 75% of these cases are performed unnecessarily. So the question is, we need a new diagnostic tool to identify the cases that are benign and avoid the diagnostic surgery and just select those that really need treatment. So genomic medicine and precision medicine has become the new hallmark of care of patients in cancer specifically, and many of traditional treatments or diagnostic processes that were performed before are being replaced by genomic medicine, where new genetic tests and based on algorithms and artificial intelligence are able to replace invasive procedures. So if we go back to our clinical question, what we would expect is to develop a new diagnostic test that would allow us to identify patients that have benign disease or have a risk of malignancy below 5%, so we can avoid diagnostic surgery and just recommend follow-up as an alternative to surgical treatment. So when we looked at this as a business opportunity, we realized that there was a market opportunity about 1.2 billion per year. About 1 million cases of indeterminate cytology are reported around the world. So in the year 2008, we founded with Professor Carlegis and other professors of the university a biomedical research consortium, which is a private-public effort to develop different new products in terms of drugs, vaccines, and new diagnostics that would, in the very high risk phase of the development, but in order to address relevant clinical questions. So in our particular case, we fell in the new diagnostics precision medicine category, and we set ourselves to develop a test that could provide the solution for these patients. So after many years of work, we were able to publish our first prototype, which is a 10 biomarker, 10 gene classifier, which basically was, we did a gene discovery process for several years, and with using AI support, we were able to identify a set of 10 genes that analyzed through an algorithm was able to predict with 95% accuracy if a thyroid nodule was benign or cancer. And we named this test thyroid print because basically it's a genetic print that is able to determine the nature of a thyroid nodule without having to remove the organ. So instead of going directly to surgery, now the workflow would be offering thyroid print to patients with indeterminate cytology. And if the test provides a benign result, the patient can avoid surgery. So after we finished our prototype, we spun out a company called GenePro-DX in 2014, and performed several validation studies supported by grants and over $10 million in venture capital. And this was the first medtech company from Universidad Católica. And so in developing our test, there were several levels of evidence that we needed to provide in order to roll out a strong and well-validated test. And so we initiated with the initial funding, we performed 2 large independent clinical trials, all supported by clinicaltrials.gov, one in Chile and one in the US. And we recruited more than 4,000 patients and ended up with 270 patients in the final cohort. This was published just last year. And we've been progressively adding more and more validation studies to our dossier of evidence that's needed to use this test in real world, both from a gene discovery, clinical trial, clinical utility, and so forth. So far, when we initiated our work, the initial funding was to install a CAP accredited lab in Chile. It's the first and only lab with this kind of accreditation, which is the most difficult accreditation in the world. We were awarded patents in most of the important countries in the world. And then we published our second clinical trial, and in early last year, we spin off a new company, which is basically a clinical laboratory where we leveraged our capacity of doing PCR, which allowed the company to break even financially. And one of the major milestones is that November last year, we signed an agreement with a multinational diagnostics company located in Europe called Biocartis to expand our test to the world. And today we've expanded our business to all of Latin America, and we are running a third international trial in order to provide final evidence that this test can be used globally. And we intend to have a 2.0 version of the test in a cartridge, which I will show you very shortly, which will allow this test to be used in any laboratory in the world. So as I mentioned, today we have a format of a test which is based on a routine PCR, which is the same that we use for COVID testing, and that takes about 72 hours to perform. And as we move away from that into a cartridge, we will be able to provide the answer within 2.5 hours and making it much more available to patients. So basically, this is a very simple system where you scan the cartridge and you place the sample, the direct fresh sample with no processing. Everything occurs through a microfluidics system within the cartridge, and you load it onto the platform, and in 2.5 hours, you will have the result. Our competitive landscape in these last 14 years, a lot has happened, and we're obviously not the only company that has been dedicated to this. There's several tests out there that intend to provide the same answers. All these tests are centralized in services in the US, and samples need to be shipped to these institutions, whereas we will have the only and first of its kind in the world that will be able to be used all over the world without having to send the samples to centralized labs. So we still haven't published this study yet, but in real world clinical utility studies, we realized that if physicians were offered the option to use the test, when patients were not recommended the test, 95% of these patients underwent surgery, and this was reduced by 65% when thioprint was used, because we were able to accurately identify the patients that did not require surgery. So just to finish, we have a development team that has worked very hard in our pipeline. We have a couple of more tests in prognosis that we're working on today, and our clinical trials team that has been key to make sure that these trials have been performed to the highest level of quality and being world-class trials. And just to finish our story, Benjamin, of 12 years old, as I told you at the beginning of the story, he underwent thyroid print testing, and it ultimately resulted in benign. So he was able to keep his thyroid, and his quality of life has been maintained as normal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hernan, for this very enlightening presentation here in this showcase. As I mentioned before, we now have a brief moment for Q&A for both Dr. Hernan Gonzalez with thyroid print and Dr. Julian Barras with training competence. So remember to make use of the questions and answers button on the lower right side of the Zoom screen. But starting off, Andres Ibanez has a question for Julian. He asks, has the training solution had any impact in the social distancing context of COVID-19? Has it been helpful or more helpful rather in training in this context?
Well, thank you for that question, Andres. And I think we can have this question replied in two ways. The first thing is, at least for our startup, it has been great. It has been a boost because most institutions that usually do a psychomotor skill training in any aspects, let's say electricity, mechanics, gastronomy, they have been devastated by the pandemics. They simply can't do anymore the way they usually teach this type of training with in-person feedback. So for us, it has been a very nice opportunity. We just raised a seed series, and we are very happy with this because the money is now being used to expand this system to institutions that need to transfer their skills to their users. And these institutions are not only of higher education. You can also have, for example, healthcare institutions that have their personnel and they need to train their personnel. And the second way to reply to your question is specifically for COVID. As I showed you in one of our publications, we were able to train our personnel in Chile using this technology, and without having that technology, it would have been simply impossible. We had lockdowns and sanitary barriers between different regions, and they simply couldn't travel to our training center in Santiago. And this was the option for them to learn how to use, for example, learn how to use the mechanical ventilator, learn how to approach a COVID-19 patient. So it was a very great experience, and now we're expanding this to other countries. Thank you again for your question.
Thank you, Julian. A question for Hernan. So obviously you mentioned a very, very impactful number when you mentioned that with the use of thyroid print, we could have basically a 65% reduction of surgery on patients that do not require it. We wanted to know more about what partners you got to that number, to that indicator with, and how you look forward to continuing this work with the set partners.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Well, this is the recent data that we produced, where we openly offered physicians within our network the option to use this test if they considered it helpful. And so we were able to evaluate the response of physicians, both using and not using the test. These are from hospitals like Universidad Católica and other hospitals around the city in Santiago. And actually we have several cases from Argentina and Ecuador as well, where we in these initial cases, we invited them to participate in this real world experience trial, and to see what's the real impact of the test, and if physicians really trust the test in order to make a decision. And so it was very encouraging to see that when the test provided a benign result, they were willing to not operate on these patients and follow them. This data we have is with a 1-year follow-up, and about 117 patients with a benign result, only 2 required a follow-up surgery, given that their nodule grew. So there was a different indication, but it didn't change from benign to malignant, but rather there was a growth that is another indication for surgery. So So the encouraging data is that we are really impacting in the number of cases that avoid surgery. This avoids hormonal supplementation for life, avoids the cost and risks of surgery, and would actually impact it. We performed an initial health economics study that shows that reduction in costs in our system would be about 35%. So it's 35% cheaper to do the test on everyone and just operate on those that have a malignant result than actually go to surgery to all of them without testing.
35% decrease. That's definitely decisive numbers. Thank you, Hernan. Julian, another question from our audience is related to the relationship that you have with professors, doctors from other universities. How is the Universidad Católica looking to expand this partnership and developing training competence?
Well, first of all, I would love to thank again, my university has been a very nice ecosystem to grow technology and to do the experiments that are needed to establish the basis for scalability. So first we need to demonstrate that actually this technology works, and what better than to do experimental studies with the intervention of our technology in our medical school, in our faculty of medicine, and knowing that this works. So then the partnerships start, and we've been working alongside also Massachusetts. We did the accelerator mass challenge. We have many contacts there now, and we are also doing partnerships with the UCSF. As I told in our presentation, we will now start next month training UCSF residents using their network of instructors, and that's pretty amazing. They're using our training programs, but we are establishing a network of instructors worldwide, which will be then easily to expand everywhere in the US. And that's only for one course. Imagine the possibilities in any psychomotor skills. Also, the development of data science and the partnerships with engineering school at Católica has helped us. And we have been able to hire very nice engineers that know exactly how to analyze videos and how to learn, for example, how to automatize a specific course in surgery, in physical therapy, and others. So I think there's a huge world to expand what we're doing. And the great news is that it is very easy to expand. It is a technology that facilitates institutions that already have content to go remote and asynchronous. That is something that they can do now.
Excellent. Now, as we're talking about expansion, obviously, Hernan, we would also like to ask you, you mentioned obviously in 2020, the great news about the financial break even. Now 2021, looking to collaborate with different institutions in Latin America. You mentioned Ecuador, for instance. The application of this technology in other fields, in other maybe pathologies, is it something that you're currently looking at, or in the future? Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So yeah, the methodology we use to develop these kind of assays is something that today is very intensive and all over the world, because we've combined genomic medicine with AI, and it's something that it's been installed all over the world for so many diseases, not only cancer. And so in our pipeline of development, we're also looking at developing prognostic tests for thyroid cancer to help surgeons decide what's the best pathway to go when the cancer has been already diagnosed, that being not doing surgery at all the way to doing a more aggressive surgery, in order to tailor the treatment to the real specific needs to each patient, and not a one fits all kind of approach. And we're also looking to partner with several academics that physicians that have different biomarkers that they've discovered, and they don't know how to take them to market, and they need help as a pathway in order from a regulatory and development perspective, quality systems. And so this platform that we've been able to establish will help us partner with several academics that wish to take their new discoveries to market, and we can streamline this process with this new company that is intimately related to the university. It's actually located within the university, and so clinical trials and other activities that are driving these discoveries to make them to market and create new value for society is a great partnership and great synergy between private and educational.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Hernan. And with that, in the interest of time, I would like to thank again Dr. Gonzalez, Dr. Varas for this inspiring outlook into health tech development in Chile and its potential for innovation worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again for your time. And also, I would love to congratulate again both of my teachers, Dr. Calergis and Hernan Gonzalez. It has been a privilege to be a co-panelist of them. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez, Dr. Varas. So as we near the conclusion of today's program, we'd like to invite the organizers of this event for a few words about this meetup's relevance and the outlook moving forward. Please welcome Professor Tao Tao Chen, Director of the Tsinghua Latin America Center. Professor.
Okay, thanks, Manuel. Dear all my friends here in the Zoom, and also my friends who is listening to us for any broadcasting from any different broadcasting channel. I believe all of you have the same feeling with me that have been very exciting 2 days, right? Very excellent speakers. Yeah, I would like to just mention 3 things very briefly in this closing remark. One, in this 2 days event, we have got primary understanding of the policy and mechanism of technology transfer both in China and Chile. And we have, several very interesting and valuable cases of technology transfer we already know. Yeah, but this is only our first step. We'll continue to discuss with our partner, the Innovation Center of Catholic University, for real process of technology transfer afterwards. We might also organize some seminars or training program for some specific technology that we select and with potential of technology transfer. And that's first. And secondly, as all of us already know, technology transfer is a rather complicated issue, let alone international technology transfer. We would like to invite all of our friends here who are interested in this topic, no matter you are scholars, business person, and government officials, to share our vision and join our actions. To make this materialize, please contact us and provide your response, request, and suggestion to us. You can see the email address of Tsinghua Latin American Center and Innovation Center of Catholic University on the screen. Or you could look at this information from the website of Catholic University and the website of Tsinghua Latin American Center. The third, I would like to take the last chance to express my sincere thanks to my dear partner, Innovation Center of Pontifical Catholic University of Chile, and Technology Transfer Office and Think Center in Tsinghua, and all the distinguished authorities and excellent speakers. My thanks also goes to all of our excellent interpreters and all the staff members in both universities. Your hard work and efficient work have made this event go so smoothly. And last but not least, thank all my friends in and out Zoom for your company and active participation. And I will be expecting your cooperation and looking forward to seeing you soon for the next event. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Professor Chen, for these words. We would also like to invite Mr. Jose Luis Parra, Executive Director of the UC Confucius Institute and Head of Asian Liaison Relations at the UC Vice Presidency of International Affairs, to share his outlook moving forward after today's event. Jose Luis, I believe your mic is off.
Yeah. Thank you, Manuel. Thank you for your kind words, Professor Tao Tao, in the closing. Today, we have come to the end of the 2 successful days of excellent presentation on base technology projects and companies. On behalf of the Universidad Católica, its Innovation Center, as well as the Vice President of Research, Dr. Pedro Buchon, and the Vice President of the International Affairs, Dr. Lilian Ferrer, I want to thank all the attendees from China, Latin America, and Chile for participating in this meetup organized between UC and the Tsinghua University. Also, I extend our gratitude to our distinguished speakers and moderators in 2 days of the event. We have learned from some initiatives that both universities are developing with the governments and the private sector. We are sure that is the beginning of the deeper collaboration in matters of the technology transference and innovation. As Vice President Ferrer mentioned in this opening session today, the internationalization of the Universidad Católica is one of the main focuses in its strategic plan. And to achieve this, Universidad Católica participated in a global and a regional networks and promotes bilateral relations with institutions such as Tsinghua, the best university in China, according to the last QS ranking. Thank you again, and we hope to see you soon in other activities. Good evening in China, and have a good day in Chile.
Thank you, Jose Luis. With this final presentation, we conclude the Tsinghua-UC Technology Meetup. On behalf of Tsinghua University and the Universidad Católica de Chile, we would like to thank you for accompanying us during these 2 days and hope that the experiences shared by our presenters were of value to you. To our audience in China, have a good night, and to our audience in Chile and Latin America, have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.